And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. Check out their DFS offerings every Sunday for NFL, and of course, each and every day now that the NBA is in full swing. You can get a deposit bonus by going to, or I guess it's a Yahoo dollar bonus by going to Awesemo.com, getting the details in an Emacs article pretty much typically every day, every week at least, when he's taking down all the information for the NFL slate over there. Dan Trevor, Chris Randone with you. Chris, how the hell you doing?
What's up, man? Long time no talk, man. It's nice to get back on the early bird pod for Sunday nights. It feels right.
It was a stretch of, I think, almost 2.5, 3 weeks because of the gap between the end of the Major League season, Major League Baseball, which is potentially coming to an end in the next few days as the Astros are leading the Nationals tonight as Chris and I record Sunday into Monday. But also the NBA just getting started, and it's starting on a Tuesday. Obviously, Chris and I, the last duo to record together when it comes to the early bird. I will stipulate here at the top that we have tons and tons of NBA content available to each and every one of you. And I mean that because it's available to those who are not subscribers, YouTube, the free articles that come out. Depending on the day, there's free projections, free ownership projections, depending on what Alex and the crew are being benevolent givers on. Or if you are an Awesemo subscriber, Awesemo Plus, you get all of the content behind the paywall. You also get the deeper dive and the deep dive, and then you get the free deeper dive show. But you also get the projections, you get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. So if you want to be a subscriber and you're not yet, use the promo code EARLYBIRD. One word, gets you 50% off your first month. What Chris and I are going to do is we're going to walk through each position, point guard through center. We're going to have a conversation about what we're looking at currently. Clearly, it is very early on in the season, so stats are right sizing. They are obviously at a point where we may not be able to discern too much, but we're going to do our best over the course of the next half hour or so to discuss some of the top plays on the slate, where our eyeballs are leading, and where we might see some upside as we go through each position. Price points on DK are still a little suppressed. The highest price point is Yanis and Kauai at 10.6. We did see prices up near $13K last year, so they haven't really stretched out the price points on DK. We'll check out FanDuel. We'll check out Yahoo as well as we roll on here on the podcast. Chris, as a fan or as a DFS analyst, anything striking you to start the year? Anything that has caught your eye? You're a Knicks fan. No, you're a Lakers fan.
Yeah, I'm a Lakers fan. I got a Lakers hat on right now.
Right. You got a Lakers. Yeah. So you're a Lakers fan. You got LeBron. You got AD. Anything striking you to start the season, or are you just waiting to see it all gel, waiting to see it all work?
I mean, it's early right now. You know how it is right now. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of get a good feel for where teams are at, players, and really understand matchups a little bit more. But I got to say, man, I saw that box score today of the Golden State Warriors, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just don't think they're very good. They have no depth, and it's just very weird how they look these first few games.
We're talking about the Warriors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a team that went all in on KD, all in on DeMarcus Cousins, and they got burned. I don't see how else. And if you are Steph Curry, you don't want to see it, but that's a team that needs a tank almost. Like they need to do a very quick – if Klay Thompson is out the entire year, as Steve Kerr has said, and this is going to be a team that has, to your point, no depth, has no real bench to speak of. D'Angelo Russell is your second offensive option. If you tank hard this year, and I don't think Steph Curry is going to want to do that, but if you tank hard, get a top 5 pick, you can rebound quickly. You get Klay Thompson back, you get Steph Curry going, and you have a power forward or center from the draft. Lo and behold, you have a big 3 again. But I agree with you. This is a team out west that if they're in the East, maybe they get the 6 or 5 seed and they figure things out. Out west, this is a team that could potentially be out of playoff contention pretty quickly too. Like the West is going to be pretty robust and pretty dirty. So I agree with you on that one. We're going to go position by position. As I said, we're going to cite some of the early stats and spreads that we have on tap already as we record late Sunday night. Starting at point guard, I'll be honest, I said on the podcast on Thursday into Friday while the Rockets game was going on that I didn't think Russell Westbrook would make a ton of sense in Houston. That I thought that between he and James Harden, ball-dominant guards, the whole kit and caboodle would be a mess. I was proved wrong that night, and the next time he came out, the triple-doubles are flowing early. This is a guy that clearly has all the talent in the world and a coach in D'Antoni who seems to stagger minutes well, did it with Chris Paul and Harden, now doing it well with Westbrook. We look at point guard. You have Harden at the top at 10-1, Curry at 9-5, Westbrook at 9-4, Trae Young at 9, Lillard at 8-9, Simmons at 8-8. It's stacked, right? This is usually one of our, if not our best position to go through. As you look, Chris, and as you start to refine your projections and what you're going to battle with each and every day, are you a fan of Westbrook with Houston here against his former team, or do you see someone in this higher price point range that stands out to you as somebody that you at least want to early on here focus in on and maybe do a bit more research for?
Yeah, no, I mean, Westbrook has looked phenomenal these first few games. And to be honest with you, I mean, these superstars, I think, we think of how they're both ball handlers and they both want to hold on to the ball with their usage rates. But, these guys have played before in all-star games together. They even played before way back in OKC. And I think, when it comes time to where they're at now in their career, they want to win, right? I think they've been in the league for so long where it's not necessarily about their stats. And, you have to understand these guys are so active on the court and they're everywhere all over the place. And it's fairly easy for them to get a triple-double because they're both facilitators. So I think this might be the last time we see Westbrook in the 9,000 range on DK. He's at 9,400. And so, I mean, if you're looking to get that bargain value still, I mean, right now, I don't know about this matchup because Oklahoma City, they are kind of slow. And so, I mean, there's also a big gap here at this point spread. Right now, they're 10-point favorites, Houston. I could really see them kind of wiping the floor early on. But, I mean, does he get there? Probably. So, I mean, I definitely don't mind it. I think Westbrook's okay at the point guard position on DK. FanDuel, however, he's 10-9. And that's when you got to ask yourself, could I pivot elsewhere to maybe Trae Young or Steph Curry in the low nines? Because, I mean, at 10-9, it really kind of prevents you from roster construction, especially on a big slate like this.
Yeah, and you point out FanDuel, obviously you're playing 2 point guards, 2 shooting guards. On FanDuel, shooting guard eligible, you have Harden and Booker, Donovan Mitchell, maybe a little less talent there than you have at point guard. So to Chris's point, you might be able to get a little cheaper with still some similar upside, maybe not complete upside, but some upside nonetheless. And Chris pointing out pace of play, and this is very early on. Again, I'm going to cite very small samples, but you have the Oklahoma City Thunder playing at a 103 pace, while the Houston Rockets have a 110 pace to start the year. Now, that might bode well for the Oklahoma City side of the ball, and you get a guy like Chris Paul. I'm not a revenge narrative sort of guy, but he does have an opportunity here to go back to Houston after being dealt away for Russell Westbrook, and his price point is at $7,400 on DK. This mid-tier price point, listen, I think point guard is going to give you the most ability to pivot, right, Chris? There are multiple players at different price points who give you a lot of upside, a lot of potential ball in hands, scorers, guys that are doing all sorts of different facilitating and scoring throughout each and every game. But you have Paul, Kyle Lowry, and Darren Fox here, all at 7,400, 7,300 respectively. Even throw Mike Conley and Lou Williams into the mix. There's a lot to like in this 7,500 to 6,500 price point. Anybody stand out to you as somebody that, as early season is starting, contextually or even from a just thinking about the NBA as a whole and trying to get right size as the season rolls on, that stands out to you at a price point that seems off? Do you like a Chris Paul? Do you think Kyle Lowry's underpriced? Does De'Aaron Fox bounce back from his poor start this weekend? Do you see anything you like, or would you rather even go even cheaper from here?
The Chris Paul revenge narrative, right? Going back to Houston, trying to, probably put on a show for us.
Exercise some demons.
Yeah, but no, De'Aaron Fox had a nice bounce back game over the weekend. And I thought, this matchup here against Denver is probably a nice matchup just because of probably it's going to be high paced. And for me, with this type of matchup, I think right now we're at a 218 over under, which is probably a little bit less than what I maybe anticipated originally. But I think, it's like you said, he's fairly cheap on both sides, 77, 7,300. And he's one of those guys where in the middle, but he definitely has that upside. Maybe like a Simmons or a Trae Young box score. For him, he can do it both ways with assists, with steals. He can also score. He also gets to the line a lot. So, Darren Fox, I think, is a great play. I think Lowry's also in play too. I mean, I think what we've seen here is that Fred VanVleet is not really taken away from him, and he's still the majority ball handler. And also, if you notice, they kind of play in different sets too, where, VanVleet will play more of the second unit, and then Lowry will play most, and then they both close out the fourth quarter as well. But I don't mind it. I think Fox, Lowry, I think Conley, if you want to differentiate yourself and maybe spread it out a little bit if you're multi-entering, I think that's definitely okay. And even going maybe to Jamal Murray. I will say someone who has kind of frustrated me these first few games, he's even frustrating me tonight, is Terry Rozier. A lot of talk in the preseason, a lot of things being said that here he's going to have his opportunity now to just be a scorer and run an offense, not have to worry about it, any distractions. I got to tell you, though, man, he's shown a lack of discipline these first few games with getting into foul trouble early, and that's really prevented him from being able to produce. For me, that's definitely something that causes a red flag in these type of situations. So I think I'm going to pull back on Terry Rozier for now. I really thought that him being in Charlotte, there's not really anyone on this team that could score the way that maybe he can. And to be honest with you, he doesn't really seem in the right headspace right now. And that's a concern to me.
I think that's a great point, and always things to take into an analysis role. I will point out also Dennis Smith Jr. is grieving the loss of a family member, so most likely out on Monday. Now, he's not been playing a ton, and this guy who apparently has lost a little bit of confidence in his jumper, but maybe, I don't know, maybe Fizdale has, I'm going to use a phrase, screwed us many times in the past when it comes to rotations, but maybe we get a little bit of clarity here from the Knicks on how many minutes we get between Ntilikina and potentially, wow, they moved Alfred Payton to shooting guard on DK.
Oh, just shooting guard?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's unfortunate. That's he's point guard eligible on FanDuel. Let me check over on Yahoo. He's point guard there at $24. I can't say I understand DraftKings' decision there, but he is shooting guard eligible, which maybe gives you some upside at a shooting guard position at a cheaper price point of $5,100. We'll talk about shooting guard momentarily. RJ Barrett, $6,100. I do not trust Fizdale. I am a Knicks fan. I trust him as a coach, right? Like I honestly do think he's a very good basketball coach, but I'm not going to say from a DFS perspective that we can trust his rotations. If Dennis Smith Jr. is in fact out, we get some sort of idea that Ntilikina is not going to get the same minutes, is going to continue to get the same minutes. That would seem to solidify Peyton and RJ Barrett, unless we get another Alonzo Trier sighting for the Knicks. Let's move to shooting guard, where James Harden is 10-1. You get Steph Curry again. You mentioned him a little bit at point guard at 9,500. Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine. Now, MPE changes our vantage point a lot here, Chris, right? We were able to talk about a lot of point guards and shooting guards in the same breath simply because of the way DK provides them being in both. But anybody we haven't mentioned yet, let's talk about maybe Booker, Mitchell, LaVine, D'Angelo Russell, any of those guys, at least ones this early on for you that you want to flag, guys you want to say, hey, let's take another look at them sometime on Monday afternoon as we start to see what starting lineups are? Or do you see shooting guard potentially as a price point or a position, I should say, that we get to a cheaper price point on?
Looking at it right now, I think there's maybe some cheap price points that we could look at as far as the shooting guards. I think what we saw in Wesley Matthews the first two games is obviously he's going to get the minutes. The usage is not necessarily there in what we would like. But, if he's able to do what maybe he did in the first game against Houston, 28.3 points, I think that's something to do. If you're looking to also pay up with maybe Harden, to get that low price point and then be able to pay up for someone like in Harden. I think another person that's interesting that might be still considered somewhat low is RJ Barrett. And so you're a Knicks fan, but I mean, if you've seen what he's done these first 3 games, it's actually pretty incredible, man. And his usage keeps going up each game. And for me, he kind of does it all. I mean, he's on the defensive side and he's attacking the basket. I mean, he's shooting 16 field goal attempts. I mean, the scoring opportunities are there, and they're seeming to giving him the minutes. I mean, he's averaging at least 36 minutes a game right now. So for me, at 6,700 on FanDuel or 6,100 on DK, I don't think you can go wrong at the shooting guard there with RJ Barrett.
I think Barrett's a guy that they will lean on very early on this year, kind of like they did with Knox to start the year for the Knicks. He clearly faded and has faded seemingly out of favor a little bit. Barrett with a little bit more to carry here early on. I will also point out that Buddy Hield is at 6K. This is a guy that has immense upside when it comes to matchup. This is a game against Denver, to Chris's point before. It is one that I expected to be a little bit higher in over-under. It's at 218 or 218.5, depending on where you're looking at. I expected 222, 223, to be quite honest. Do those 5 points matter? Well, yeah, they do. And I think that pace here will be one to watch and one to keep track of as we continue to talk about each and every one of these positions as we roll on. I will remind everyone, Alfred Payton is 5,100 on DK here. Worth keeping in mind as you start to build some lineups. Josh Hart has had a very, very solid start to the year for New Orleans. Hart had 23 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 assist, and 1 block during New Orleans' 123-126 loss to Houston on Saturday. He is now up to 4,800. This is a price point that is up from 3,600 in his last game out. That's a decent price jump, but if he's going to continue to get minutes between 28 and 34 minutes, Chris, sub 5K seems pretty nice. So it's a place where I'm going to find some relief and maybe go back to Josh Hart. 11-game slate. I'm not playing. I'm not MMEing. I explain this every time. I'm not somebody who does that. I play probably a handful of 5 to 6 lineups. Josh Hart's a piece that I will hold on to and hope that I can roster simply because of the potential upside at shooting guard. Small forward is next. I will say this again and again. Yanis is somebody I will roster whenever I can fit him. And that's just the way I'm going to play the game. He's a bit of a cheat code, and Kauai feels that way to start the year as well. Is there enough of a price difference between 10-6 and 9-2 here for you, between Yanis and Kauai, their current situations, the way these two teams are playing, their matchups heading into this slate, that gives you a bit of pause that maybe Kauai is the better play on this slate than Yanis in their $1,400 difference on DK?
Man, I got to be honest with you. So I've watched Kauai in every game so far this season, and I don't know what Doc Rivers is doing, but he's not on the court a lot. I think right now he's averaging just under or a little bit over 28 minutes per game. And yeah, it's a small sample size through 3 games, but the way the rotations are, it really confuses me. And I have to also think is he's got to give scoring opportunities to the bench when it comes to Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell. And they have this nice little pick and roll thing going on. But what I've seen so far is Kauai starts the game, and then what you have is Doc will take him out around the 7 or 6 minute mark, and then he'll come in possibly at like the 1 minute mark, maybe not. But then it's weird though, because then if he plays a couple minutes, Doc then takes him out again, and he'll come back in at like the 5 minute mark or 4 minute mark. Very strange, but I don't know what they're doing because he's only playing 28 minutes a game right now. So, for me, that doesn't help make me feel comfortable in regards to can he reach his upside or his ceiling? Because I mean, yeah, his usage rate is high, but he's not on the floor enough, I feel like right now, in order to be able to hit that mark. So when I look at his price point at small forward, and we have a guy like, say, Yanis, I mean, it's kind of hard knowing that Yanis is someone who can definitely get there, who's going to be on the court a lot. But then, too, it's like, man, Kauai can definitely do it in that short period of time. And it's not that I don't want to roster Kauai. It's just what is going on right now with the way that Doc is handling him in the rotations. Is he trying to figure something out? Because this is something that I'm trying to figure out as well because I want to roster him.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question in general about these new players in new places, right? Guys who are coming over and building completely new teams like the Clippers. You look at that roster up and down from one year to the next is completely different. I would say it looks like, my opinion, Kawhi has been a subject of game flow. You talk about game script in the NFL. I think Doc may be playing load management early on here, maybe trying to find the right spots to deploy Kawhi in games that matter most. Now, they did lose against the Phoenix Suns, if I remember correctly. I have that score right the other night. And that's a game that they probably want back, ones that they don't necessarily want to give to history books and say that they were not able to pull off if they are a team that is legitimately trying to play for a title. But Kawhi did have 27 points, 10 rebounds there. And I agree with you that it's still worth figuring out. I would prefer to have, and they're not equal prices here, Giannis over Kawhi. But I do think it's one over time to make sure we're keeping an eye on and trying to discern exactly where the minutes are going. Middleton is 7,200 for the Milwaukee Bucks in that same lineup with the matchup with Cleveland. Danilo, got that pronunciation right last time out. Gallinari, 67. We got Hield, Oubre, Aaron Gordon in the mid pack here. Bogdanovich for for Utah to get the U right. See, I'm from New Jersey, so H's don't really exist. So it's not Houston or huge. It's huge and Houston. So just to explain, as I wear my Rutgers sweatshirt, what exactly is happening here. Marcus Morris has had a pretty decent start to the year for the Knicks. Nothing outlandish, but has played fairly well and played decent minutes. So he is always somebody in the mid-tier that I'll keep an eye on. Same with the guys like Will Barton and Joe Ingles. They have enough upside that I think they need to at least be mentioned. Same with someone like an OG Anunoby and Bojan Bogdanovic for the Sacramento. I always mix up which Bogdanovic is which. For the Sacramento Kings, Josh Hart, small forward eligible. Any cheap options here for you, Chris, that stand out as guys that, again, this early on, we're going to have the strategy show. We're going to have the deeper dive. We're going to have live before lock. We're going to have the articles. We're going to have the projections. Tons of stuff still to come out from Awesemo.com. Anybody from a cheap side of the pool stand out to you?
I mean, I think Kelly Oubre is someone that you definitely have to take note. He's still under 7K. He's averaging almost 40 fantasy points per game through 3 games so far. Usage is there. He's at 24% right now in usage. But I think the biggest thing is that, he's on the court, man, and he's getting a lot of shot attempts up. He's also doing it on the defensive side. So a little tougher matchup, though, going to be at home against Utah. Not a high over-under, probably one of the lowest on the slates, I think, right now from what I'm seeing. But, I mean, still, at someone who is, still under 7 and averaging about 40 fantasy points a game, I think you got to take note of that. And I think another guy maybe if you're looking for like a cheap option, I guess, is maybe TJ Warren. He's at 5,400, but TJ Warren's someone who the minutes are there right now. Right now he's just not hitting shots. So, I mean, if he could be more accurate and if he can get those shot attempts in, I think you're looking at someone who definitely can hit value and definitely presents upside. As we've seen in previous seasons, TJ Warren gets the hot hand. Those 3 start going in. I mean, he'll definitely get there for you. So definitely like those 2 guys. And I think one more guy who also went off today is Ronnie Hood. I mean, for him, if his shot's on, he can get you on the defensive side too. But he's someone who, if his shot is going, he'll continue to shoot. And if that's going in, it'll definitely get you there. And he's 4,000 and 3,800 on DK. So I would say Ronnie Hood is probably one of the last cheap guys that I would definitely consider for rostering.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Warren and Hood, and they're almost guys that I use as examples of 2 different sides of small forward. Like Hood's the scorer, right? Hood can score in bunches and can give you a 28, 35 real point outing in the NBA. It doesn't happen often, but it's possible. But the peripheral stats aren't always there. Whereas the other side of the ledger is a guy like TJ Warren, who you're really looking to give you sort of 13 points, 10 rebounds, a couple of steals, a couple of assists, really round out that box score. But small forward with the multi-position eligibility over on DK, those are the guys you're looking for, right? You're looking for those different molds and different guys, the Andrew Wiggins of the world versus the guys who can fill up the box score and really give you an opportunity to save some cash and make your way down and save at another position potentially. Now, power forward, you get Yanis, you get Kauai again. Pascal Siakam is power forward and center eligible. He's a guy I'm keeping an eye on all year on what his eligibility is. Where DK decides Siakam should be eligible is very intriguing to me as the year goes on. Julius Randle had a bad game against the Nets, but he could have a bounce back here against Chicago. Lauri Markkanen is somebody I'm keeping an eye on. And then we get into Brandon Ingram, who I just will never trust. I know that's something I need to get past, but Ingram's a guy I'm not a huge fan of. Had a gigantic outing last time out. I get it. 39 minutes, went 14 of 22, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, but still 63.25 DraftKings points back on October 26th. That was on Saturday. Heck of an outing. Do you buy into Brandon Ingram on the New Orleans Pelicans with Zion out? Do you think this is a guy that, as a Lakers fan, seeing him play there for years, is a big trade bringing AD to the Lakers? Do you like Ingram as a DFS asset? Do you like him as an NBA player? How do you see him at 7,500 on DK?
Yeah, I mean, Ingram's a baller, man. He's a great stretch four. I mean, he's someone who's lanky, who'll get rebounds for you. But, I mean, he's a knockdown shooter. And if he's in his rhythm, man, I mean, he's got a nice pure shot. And right now, I mean, we've seen he's taken at least 19 shot attempts through 3 games, 19, 20, and 22, respectively. So, yeah, I mean, usage is there. He's definitely probably their best pure scorer. I mean, you could probably say Drew Holiday is, but I think I would give the notch to Ingram right now, to be honest with you. Ingram's a pure scorer, so I like to see him maybe get a little bit more as far as the defensive side. But, right now, I like it. He does have 5 blocks through 3 games, so that's not bad. And he's not turning over the ball a lot either. So, but, yeah, I mean, I think there's really not anything bad to say about him. I really have to say that I thought that he would probably flourish more in New Orleans compared to LA. I think he needs to have a little bit more freedom and not have too much star power around him, because I think him in itself, he definitely is someone who has talent to be an all-star. So I think he'll be able to showcase that this year on New Orleans.
I think also something to point out here for New Orleans and for Brandon Ingram is, what position is Brandon Ingram eligible at on Yahoo? Without looking, what's your first guess? What is his position eligibility on Yahoo, Chris?
I'm going to say power forward center.
He is shooting guard on Yahoo. So, and he's $32.
Okay.
So I say that because shooting guard can often be a position that is difficult to manage. Now, Yahoo has Harden and Booker, Russell, Donovan Mitchell at 35, Levine at 34. But I will point out, and I point this out genuinely, is that if you're not playing on Yahoo regularly and you're trying to port over a DK lineup or trying to port over a FanDuel lineup or grabbing a cruncher that isn't Yahoo specific, that's the kind of guy you miss out on. And that's the kind of guy that just disappears from your player pool because they don't mesh. The data doesn't mesh. Mm-hmm. So I pointed out now simply because Yahoo has a lot of that. If you want to play on Yahoo, and I'd suggest you do, there is a lot of opportunity to find these nuances and find the change in the pricing and a change in the position eligibility for certain players. Would I ever say Brandon Ingram's a shooting guard? Hell no. I mean, I'm not trying to say I think that's the right call, but that is where they have him for this slate, and it's worthwhile to understand that as you're building lineups over there. Again, $32 for a shooting guard that has the ability to fill the stat sheet the way Brandon Ingram does is very intriguing to me over on Yahoo. So I just want to point that out to everyone as we talk through. Let's talk about the potential centers here, and then we'll close it out with some final thoughts of our high-priced talent. Jokic, Drummond, Embiid has the Q tag. Last I saw, he was out Saturday for load management. Then it said that he had a sprained ankle. Now the sprained ankle may linger, so Embiid may be out against Atlanta, which would be a prime matchup for him. Where do you lean here on center? You have Drummond and Jokic at the top in pretty good spots, ability to fill up the stat sheet, but you also have players in the mid-tier who could give you plenty of upside when all is said and done. You have Tristan Thompson finally hitting a 3 for the first time in his career. Not saying that's going to happen again, but you have the likes of Harrell and Washington now for Charlotte with some injuries there stepping up. Cody Zeller should be back against the Clippers, though. Marc Gasol all the way down to 5,400 for Toronto. Anybody stand out to you at center, or is this kind of hunting and pecking at the price point that fits you best?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the center position, no Karl Anthony Towns on this slate. So that's one thing that we got to be excited about because he seems like a must play right now. I got to be honest with you, how impressive he's been so far to start off this season. But, I mean, you're going to look at, are people going to go to Zubac, who showcased that if he gets a little bit more time on the floor, he could definitely hit value there. But, I mean, looking at these guys, Jokic is probably just a little too high right now. Mitchell Robinson is someone interesting because, I mean, if he can get you there with steals and blocks, I mean, and if he can score some, as a Knicks fan, I mean, he's definitely there and someone who could hit value. I mean, he's 5,600 on DK, so I guess that's something to look at as well. Going to go against Chicago, and Chicago, outside of Lauri Markkanen, I mean, doesn't really scare me on the interior. But yeah, I mean, Drummond's on this slate. I think you'll see a lot of ownership gravitate to Drummond as well. Although I will say after his first game, he's definitely thrown out a couple duds for his price point the last 2 games. So I think that's something to also just be cautious of. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you have your core when rostering. And at least for me, when I'm multi-entering, I have my core. And sometimes for center, I do like to rotate and switch it up. I don't like to get too concentrated. So given that it's a big slate too, I think I'll kind of go the same route in this scenario as well, which is probably having 5 or 6 centers that I think have upside and just rotating them out through lineups.
All right. I think that makes a ton of sense at the top end of center. You do have names like an Aaron Baines, clearly, with DeAndre Ayton out. I haven't seen anything new on Ayton's status. I know there was talk about the NBA PA getting a potential status update for Ayton as they appealed his suspension, but I haven't seen anything new. Baines has been pretty solid in those 2 contests, 29 minutes, 23 minutes, respectively. Denver and the Clippers, 30 and 32.5 DraftKings points in both. Still just 5,100. Matchup with Rudy Gobert, not nearly as enticing, but still a cheap price point. On a DK makes more sense than on a single center site, maybe Yahoo thrown in there as well. Any cheap options at center here that you like that you want to throw out, or are you willing to forgo that and talk about our high price options as where you think your best building blocks are?
I think Tristan Thompson is interesting. I think he'll get an easy matchup, in my opinion, against Brook Lopez against Milwaukee. What we've seen Tristan the first 2 games is he's getting a lot of shot attempts up, which is interesting. And for me, I mean, hey, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, he's averaging right now almost 40 fantasy points after 2 games, but the minutes are there. Usage is not as necessarily there, but hey, I mean, if he can make up for it with some blocks, that's always a big thing, especially on sites like FanDuel and DK. So outside of that, though, I think Tristan Thompson, interesting. And then, well, we already talked about Mitchell Robinson. Myles Turner is always in that gray area because he definitely has so much upside, very energetic player, very all over the court, playing about almost 40 minutes each game so far. So I think the biggest thing for him is just making sure he doesn't get into foul trouble. And, if he could just have that defensive intensity, it could definitely pay off his salary.
All right. Fun game over the years that Dave and I have played together, Dave Lochgren. I want to give you all of the 9K and above players. So usually we used to do 10K and above, but DK's sort of squashed the pricing to start the year. I'm going to give you all of the 9K and above players. There's a number of them. And I want you to give our listeners who your favorite on this slate at present. Now, this can obviously change with lineups and injuries and the like, is your favorite to build around. So we start with Trae Young at 9K, Embiid is 9,100, Kawhi Leonard is 9,200, Andre Drummond at 93, Westbrook 94, Steph Curry 95, Jokic is 96, Harden at 10-1, Giannis at 10-6. So who of those 10 or so, I think it's 10 exactly actually, players are you most likely to build a core around for this Monday slate of 11 games?
I would say DK, Westbrook, possibly. And then I would say FanDuel, maybe Curry, maybe Trae Young.
I dig it. And I do like the differentiation there. Remember, 2 of each position over on FanDuel. On DK, we get the MPE that can make a world of difference when constructing lineups. I'll remind you again, Brandon Ingram, shooting guard eligible on Yahoo. Look out for those nuances. If you're playing over there, look for the advantages you can have over players who are simply trying to get more action on different sites. And you can be more of a Yahoo-specific player. I think that will benefit you greatly. That's all of the 3rd or 4th or 5th highest sites. Obviously, I think we all observe that DK and FanDuel are your 2 main sites when it comes to DFS. If you're playing on the others, then make sure you're trying to find those nuances, find those rule differences, find those pricing differences, find those scoring differences that allow you to be the expert, allow you to be the one who can run the site and make sure that you're exploiting those little loopholes that maybe give you a little bit of a leg up against the rest of the competition. Chris, any final thoughts on this slate or on the NBA at large as we close out the podcast?
No, I mean, just really getting into a rhythm now with NBA. Looking to dive in more now, especially now since the season is starting to kind of build that foundation. But just excited to really break this down every Sunday night with you, and looking forward to this 11-game slate tomorrow night.
11 games are on tap. Again, a reminder that you get tons of free content from Awesemo over on YouTube. Subscribe, leave a comment. We love them. I do read all the comments, even the ones that are maybe not so nice. But leave them. Let us know what you like, what you want to hear more of here on the podcast with Chris and myself, or overall on the Early Bird. Let us know as well that you're listening by subscription, by hitting that alarm bell so you know when we go live each and every time for our live shows. Find us on Twitter at Awesemo_com. Find Chris at Chris Rendon. Find me at Dan Strafford. And, of course, find us each and every day, Monday through Saturday, here on the DFS Early Bird, presented by Awesemo.com.